Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about how to organize our fabrics. As I said in the tour of the studio, this is all of my fabric stash here, but I used to have bookshelves full of fabric. And I realized working for the quilting industry, I'm always working with fabric that hasn't come out yet. And I never had an opportunity to actually use my stash fabric. So each time I accumulate a huge stash, I end up donating it to charity or giving it to friends. And it starts all over again. So right now we're in the smaller side of my stash. It all fits in these cubes. And I want to talk about how I organize my fabric to make it easy to access, easy to store, and in this case, easy to keep clean. So I'm going to take these over to the cutting table and show you how I do it. The way I store my fabric works for a lot of fabric or a little fabric. If you have fabric that are on bolts, I would leave them on bolts, but this is for all your yardage cuts, so I will show you all of that when we move over to the cutting table. Welcome back. In this video, I want to talk about how to sort and store your fabric stash. No matter how big or small your stash is, the way you store it will make it easier for you to access it. And I learned fairly early on with my stashes that I sorted them first by colors, then I sorted them by type. So I had a black and white area and a batik area and a 30s area. And then I started sorting them by collections, and now I kind of do a whole combination of those. The shelves behind me are the Billy bookcases. I talked about these in a couple other videos. And originally these stored my entire fabric stash. I had a lot more fabric than I do currently. We are a design studio working with the most current fabrics all the time, so I very rarely get a chance to do my own project. And over the last 20 years, I will build up a stash, and then I will end up donating it, and then I will start building it up again, and it's kind of a vicious cycle. But I never get to use the older fabrics because I'm always working forward instead of backwards. That being said, I do keep some fabric on hand, so this is how I store it, and I hope these tips help you with your stash, no matter how big or small it is. One of the beauties about the Billy bookcases is you can stash fabric that's folded, that's rolled, and you can also take some of the shelves out, and this is the same depth as a fabric bolt. And these come from IKEA. We have them all through the house. They're just the perfect size for almost anything. They come in different colors. Certainly not a sponsor of IKEA, but these are the shelves I've used for years to keep my fabrics organized. So, however you decide to do it, if you do it by category, the categories I find that work the best are batiks, black and whites, novelties, basics, backgrounds and neutrals, and then I go into themes like 4th of July or Halloween or Christmas. And by doing it by themes versus putting all your reds together, all your greens together, all your blues together, is that when you go to do a project, you kind of can see what you have to work with for all of your fabrics. And you don't have to keep hunting and pecking throughout your shelves. That being said, sorting them by color is much more appealing to the eye if you're more looking for something that looks aesthetic in your studio, and that's certainly a way to go, or a combination thereof. One of the tricks I learned really early on in storing my fabric is that if you store it like this, folded, it is really hard to pull out the bottom piece or a middle piece. It messes up the whole stack. So I don't even know where I got this tip from, but I learned to roll my fabrics, which you can see here in this front box. And that way, let me pull this back here so I can reach it. That way, if I want this orange fabric, I can pull it right out and it doesn't collapse all the fabrics on it. And say I said, I don't really want that fabric, I can just push it right back into there. And having them all rolled really is quite pretty as well. There's a way to roll them, and I'm going to show you that really quick, and how I keep all my pieces together. So even these little scraps can get rolled. So there's really little scraps that can't, but if you have the full length of fabric, which is the 42 inches folded, so you have your 24-inch piece, you fold this in half, 42 is your 21-inch piece. So now you fold this in half, you end up with a 10.5-inch piece. And I tend to fold it once, so I have raw edges on one side and a nice round fold on the other, and then I roll the raw edges into the fold. Now I have no strings hanging off. It's very, very neat, and it is one size. And no matter how thick or thin the fabric is, they're all going to fit perfectly because cotton fabric for quilting is all about the same size. So if you have one like this, where I actually have little pieces for this one, or I have I have little pieces for this too. So I have a half a yard, and then I have like 3/8 of a yard of the same print, and I have a scrap that I want to keep because I know I'm going to do a project with this and I might need every piece I have. So I put everything, I stack it up, I fold the entire thing in half, fold to salvage, fold that in half again, and then I roll this up. Now when I pull this fabric out, all of my little pieces are inside, it's all together, it's organized, and I can just go ahead and stick it in my bin. These are the little fabric bins that you can buy from IKEA, you can buy them at Target. They're the perfect depth to store your fabrics. So no matter how you decide to categorize your fabric, think about rolling it to store it, because it will be much easier to access it and get it in and out of your bins. Think about how you work. Are you a really scrappy quilter? Do you mix all your collections together, all your fabrics together, all your colors together? Then you probably want to sort by color. If you are much more of a collections person and you want one collection and you're probably only going to use one collection in a quilt, store your fabrics by collection. If you love certain themes, store your fabrics by themes. So there's different ways to approach it. There's no right or wrong way. I do tend to keep my yardage separate from my pre-cuts. If I have a pre-cut with a special border, I will put that in a bag together or in a box together, knowing that's going to be a project. Backgrounds, I keep backgrounds and backing. If you can keep them on the bolt rolled up, you can go in a quilt shop and they probably have extra empty bolts laying around. Then you could stack them on the shelf like a quilt shop does. If you have other fabrics, like I have leathers, I have suedes, I have garment fabric, I keep all of those in their own containers. They don't tend to behave quite as nicely as these. They don't want to roll up, so I do have to stack those. But again, I don't tend to mix the craft material or different themes. Like I don't use leather in quilting, and I don't use garment fabric in quilting, so I will separate those. That's just how I work. If you work where you mix them together, then that's what you want to think about. But think about how you're storing it, think about the way you're folding it, and if you have any tips on how you store your fabric, please leave them in the comments below. Everybody who watches this would benefit from your comments. And I think that is everything on how to organize fabric. If you have any questions, just let me know, and thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, make sure you like and subscribe below. You can find the Whimsical Workshop on our website, thewhimsicalworkshop.com, and that has all links to all of our other social media platforms. Thanks for joining us.